Welcome back as we continue our focus on COVID-19 in Gauteng and around the country. A lot of talk, of course, about the vaccines and the vaccine patents. Well, fighting that fight for South Africa over at the G7 is our country's President, Cyril Ramaphosa. He's saying that G7 leaders, it's now time to cough up. He wants them to meet their financial commitments towards developing tools to fight COVID-19. And he has warned the leaders of the richest countries that if they don't, many more lives are going to be lost. This as he continued his campaign to have that intellectual property, those rights, temporarily waived. Well, let's unpack this and see just how realistic it is and what South Africa's role as the only African nation invited to the G7 actually is. I'm joined by Dr. Charles Sinkala, international relations expert. Dr. Sinkala, it's always such a pleasure in speaking to you. There's so much to talk about at the G7, but if I could get your thoughts on this. Cyril Ramaphosa laying down the law, saying the rich countries must help the poor countries. But are they going to do that just because our president has asked them to do that?
Thank you very much, and good morning to your viewers. It's a very hard call, that has taken President Cyril Ramaphosa. We commend him for a great job to look after the rest of the African countries. As a big brother, South Africa, I think is doing very well. But however, my view that, it is very difficult to ask Coca-Cola to waive their licensing and their IP to allow other countries to manufacture without control of Coca-Cola products. Same with the vaccines. You must remember that the COVID pandemic has brought in a lot of opportunities for pharmaceutical companies, and through these opportunities, they anticipate to make money. But if we go to them and pray that they should suspend their licensing waivers so that we can be able to manufacture our own medication, then there is no point of them being in existence business. But again, the call for rich countries, like the United States of America, Germany, and the other European countries, to assist the poor countries, including the African countries, it's a good call. Where already they have pledged about 1 billion doses, for the vaccines as the country is going forward. But again, we must be realistic, especially in Africa and the world, that poor countries has been maintained to be poor because they've been fed to be poor like that, and the dependence syndrome has to be treated as well as we want to treat the COVID-19 pandemic. But they need to now start getting independent. I think the call should be in the for most countries to manufacture locally and design and discover their own vaccines and treat the other diseases that might come forth.
And Doctor, this is exactly why the president, South Africa, is President Ramaphosa. As I mentioned, he's the only African president there, so really he's fighting for all of Africa here, not just all of us here in South Africa. I want to ask about the intellectual property waiver around the vaccinations as well. What kind of leverage does Cyril Ramaphosa have when making that kind of request to the countries that have this intellectual property, bearing in mind, it's not a case of the president going there hat in hand. We do have Johnson & Johnson down in the Eastern Cape, don't we? So we're not completely reliant on a global supply. But how does he navigate that? How does he ask that question when asking for assistance?
Yeah, I'm very happy that you said we've got Johnson & Johnson and Pfizer and the other multinational companies. These are not African companies that we have to celebrate that we are manufacturing within. We do not have rights to manufacture vaccines. We have to go to them and ask for permission. Hence, President Cyril Ramaphosa is making this appeal that there can be that IP waiver. But, realistically, and talking about international law and commerce, they cannot waive those licensing. They can only license, like a country such as South Africa, to manufacture those products under the supervision of their IP, but they won't release the ingredients and the specifications of those ingredients. Otherwise, they'll be out of business. So that has to be made very clear. Yes, the call is very good. We want to save the people in the world, including Africa. But these pharmaceutical companies, they work on the profit. They are not a non-government organization or charity organization.
Doctor, forgive me for climbing in. I did get the sense of the answer from that. I would like to just get your thoughts on this in the last minute I have with you. When it comes to international relations, why does it appear that some of the G7 countries are willing to give up the intellectual property rights waivers while other countries aren't? What is making it so easy for some of them to do it and others not to do it? Last minute is all yours.
Yes, if you look at those countries which are willing to give, as the world now is sourcing for good leadership on the continent, United States of America, South Africa and other, Germany have agreed, but the United Kingdom has refused. So it is very difficult to ascertain what is the main cause, but it's to understand their current predicament as well, that they own this IP, and giving it out is not going to be easy without the fight. We may require or request a part of licensing for us to manufacture within the rest of the continent or the countries, respectively, rather than them willingly giving us the IP. Otherwise, we must now concentrate on discovering and manufacturing our own medication that can treat us as people, rather than depending on others, because it's not going to be easy for them to assist us.
No, it's not, and that's going to be the battle, isn't it? As well, right now, we want to try and get vaccines as quickly as we can, but, Doctor, as you say, it's going to become about discovery and trying to find a way to make a vaccine, and by the time that happens, we may have lost a lot more lives. But always a pleasure, Dr. Charles Sinkala joining us, Africa International Relations expert joining us here on ENCA. Let's talk